Now, of course, I will not spend the next few minutes justifying genocide. This would align with some pretty problematic beliefs which none of us should support. However, I do believe there's a significant amount of context missing around the downfall of the Air Nomads. For example, it might surprise you to learn that Firelord Sozin was influenced towards radicalization by a faction of renegade Airbenders. Additionally, Sozin's sister herself entered into a romantic relationship with a leader from the Air Nation who had the specific intention of exerting influence over the Fire Nation from within. And most of all, the mythological, quote, infallible unity of the Air Nomads wasn't as tight as we may think. Now, I know that's a lot to digest, but let's unpack that together bit by bit. Before I continue getting into how the Airbenders were a factor in their own demise, I'd like to thank today's sponsor for keeping the lights on in my house. Are you ready for an epic gaming experience? Get ready because Avatar Generations month of Rebels is finally here. Navigator Games has got a lineup of rare heroes that will blow your mind and ignite your gaming skills. First up, the mysterious Blue Spirit. Is he friend or foe? With his sharp dual swords, this dubious hero can slice through any challenge that comes his way, but remember, there is a limited time to collect this legendary character. Ahoy gamers, introducing Pirate Captain Jiang, an Earth Kingdom pirate who fearlessly protects her crew and her people. If you are unfamiliar with this character, you can totally find her in the Katara comic, which I reviewed right here. Wield her saber with precision and join the fight against the Fire Nation. Together, with the help of the captain, you can overthrow their tyranny. Brace yourselves, Kyoshi warrior Sokka is here to show that he's no ordinary warrior. Trained by the legendary Kyoshi warriors, he's the only male to earn their respect. Master the art of sneak attacks, but remember, keep it hush-hush. And prepare to harness the power of the moon itself. Moon Spirit Yue is not just any combatant, she's the actual moon. Unleash powerful ocean bending to extinguish the fiery flames of the Fire Nation. She's a force to be reckoned with. And it's the first time that Yue has ever been playable in any kind of game. But every hero needs a formidable adversary. Enter Moonslayer Zhao, armed with strong and concentrated firebending. His mission? To take down anyone who stands against the Fire Nation. Can you handle the heat? Don't miss your chance to collect all these incredible Rebel heroes. Get Avatar Generations now on the App Store and Google Play Store. Simply check out the description box and the pinned comment below for the direct links. If you're really into the deep lore of Avatar, this is the video for you. Before we get into it, let's establish some groundwork. For most of this video, I'll be looking at a specific 4-year period in the Avatar timeline, starting from Firelord Sozin's coronation in 58 BG before the Airbender genocide, to Avatar Roku's wedding in 54 BG. During this time period, the twin pillars holding up the Air Nomads were an elder airbender named Yudron and a devout monk and philosopher named Khandro. Unfortunately, these two figureheads uphold their respective faction with two very different views on Air Nomad culture and how the Air Nomads should consort with the other nations, particularly the nobility. You see, Yudron believes the Air Nomads should work with the Avatar and the other nations to reach more people and help the world, and he accepts that dealing with the elites is a necessary means to that end. Basically, we can think of this guy as a traditional Air Nomad, someone Aang would have looked up to. By contrast, Khandro believes in spiritual enlightenment above all else, and he feels as though all the politicking and all the rubbing of shoulders with the world's elites are diminishing the spiritual abilities of the Air Nomads, making them collectively weaker. Unlike the other nations, those born to the Air Nomads were almost all benders due to the high level of spirituality of their people. Therefore, Khandro broke off from the Air Nomads to create his own faction called the Guiding Wind. The Guiding Wind, led by Monk Khandro, is a renegade order of Air Nomads during Roku's time period, and they are not officially recognized by any of the 4 temples. The Eastern Air Temple views them as too disruptive, the North as too extreme, the West as too in opposition to tradition, and the South, where Avatar Aang eventually would live, has taken no stance. In particular, the young Gyatso, who would one day become the mentor of Avatar Aang, remained neutral between the factions forming within the Air Nomad ranks. Unfortunately, during this time period, the Guiding Wind group is being accused of violent acts against the Fire Nation, attacks that are unsanctioned by Khandro. Despite his general disagreement with the Air Nomads, he still holds to the core values of non-violence. Khandro merely wants to disrupt the power structure, namely through his proposed marriage to Princess Zayshan of the Fire Nation, the non-bending sister of Firelord Sozin. You can learn more about her in this video. The Avatar Legends campaign guide leaves it open, but it seems like these attacks within the Fire Nation are being caused by Firelord Sozin himself and his subjects, who wish to undermine the radical faction. Meanwhile, it's business as usual for the rest of the Air Nomads, who often work together with Avatar Roku to mitigate any issues around the globe, such as the ordeal in the north, which I covered in this video. But many of the Air Nomad elders recognize that their nation is vulnerable and spread too thin across the globe, made worse by the fact that Monk Khandro of the Guiding Wind keeps recruiting young Air Nomads away from the temples that are near empty to begin with. But there are certain members of the traditional Air Nomad values that try to help in their own way, particularly Sister Anada, an engineer whose innovative designs created the Fire and Air Center of Learning. But her efforts to create new technology in concert with the Fire Nation is hindered by the rebellious efforts of the Guiding Wind, which forced the hand of the Fire Nation military, which now occupies the site of the Fire and Air Center of Learning. So when it comes to the ultimate demise of the Air Nomads, there are a few reasons why they fell. It was simply too difficult to stand against the Fire Nation when there was internal fighting, and it didn't help that places like the Southern Air Temple were too docile to take the lead, instead wanting to debate and compromise. Perhaps the Air Nomads could have rallied behind Monk Khandro, but with the attacks in the Fire Nation being blamed on him, it was entirely too difficult to get a foothold for the Air Nomads. The Air Nomads played a crucial role in maintaining peace and preventing conflicts from escalating, and it was perhaps their altruism that led to their downfall. While they were fixing everyone else's problems, they failed to keep their own house in order. In particular, the Guiding Wind posed a challenge for the Air Nomads. They might have realized their mistake of spreading themselves too thin, but the main concerns of Monk Khandro and the Guiding Wind was the Air Nomad influence on the Fire Nation elite. And it seems that Sozin made significant moves against his sister, Princess Zeshan, and Monk Khandro, possibly around their wedding, which set the stage for his later actions against the Air Nomads. I believe that Sozin probably dealt with Zeshan and Khandro potentially through assassination or other means, effectively neutralizing them since they were the most substantial threat to his plan. Pretty simple divide and conquer tactics, except it wasn't Sozin who was doing the dividing. That fault was on the Air Nomads and their internal conflict, and of course, Sozin capitalized on that by conquering the fractured pieces. And it makes sense that Sozin would want to keep the pacifist members of the Air Nomads around instead of the guy attempting to overthrow world leaders. Sound familiar, anyone? Firelord Sozin's attempts to discredit the Guiding Wind likely had an impact as well. It's worth noting that if the leadership of the Guiding Wind were united, it could have changed the course of events. Air Nomad support of Monk Khandro might have helped their plan succeed, altering the Fire Nation's trajectory and preventing Sozin's actions. On the other hand, if the Guiding Wind aligned more closely with the temples, the Princess Zeshan wedding might not have ever taken place. This could have spared Zeshan and probably Khandro from their likely tragic fate. Furthermore, the Air Nomads would not have been spread as thin, and their ideals could have had a more significant impact, allowing for the partnerships like the Fire and Air Center of Learning to flourish instead of breaking down into a failed project. Ultimately, it seems that the true debate between Yodrone and Khandro never fully unfolds because Sozin swiftly deals with the growing Air Nomad influence in his nation. In a private chat, fellow Avatar YouTuber Airspeed Prime made a good point that this situation mirrors the forever debate surrounding the Jedi, questioning how active and involved they should be in the world, or in the galaxy in that case. So in terms of whether the Air Nomads deserve their fate gets a little complicated, but their internal conflicts paired with Sozin's opposition made them vulnerable. Both sides attempting to influence the Fire Nation caught Sozin's attention, and he took decisive action to eliminate any immediate threat, much like Emperor Palpatine in Star Wars. The ultimate culmination of this situation resulting in a genocide relates closely to Order 66 from Star Wars. While it's valid to criticize the Jedi for certain aspects, we must acknowledge the powerful power play made by the villain that caught everyone off guard. Sometimes, we need to give credit to the victor for their strategies and successes, rather than solely focusing on the losers who fell short. But ultimately, it was a perfect storm of calamity that led to the Airbender genocide. As always, this information is all sourced from the canon Avatar Legends role-playing game. If you want to stay up to date as I go through my coverage of all the lore, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a thing. And if you want to learn more about the Air Nomad Khandro and his betrothed, Fire Princess Zeshan, who might be one of the first chi blockers, check out this video on screen. I'll see you on the next one, and as always, peace, love, and remember, be water, my friends.